definition of it is he's not been on the front end of this so far. He's not been transparent. I mean, there may be
they are making routine announcements about the things they are finding, and they are inviting questions about the things they are finding every single day.
But by definition, he's not being transparent. They're not providing data for the things that they say they have found evidence of. They just aren't.
The White House has provided.
You can make announcements, and he also did admit that he actually.
So you just don't believe it. I mean, they are providing information. You just choose not to believe that it's true.
Man, our boy Scott Jennings had a busy day yesterday, sending these Democrats into a tailspin. As usual, the timestamps are all over the video. I got 3 clips to share with you today. Let's get to the first one. This one's absolutely wild. I'll give you my thoughts right after.
What did you think of that press conference, Scott?
Well, Elon Musk, who doesn't need to do this, has. You know, he could be doing anything else. He's got companies. He's the richest guy in the world. Has decided to give his own time to a government of a country that he loves, that has given him all this opportunity. I take him at his word that he wants to be transparent, that he invites transparency. Obviously, everybody in the English-speaking world media is looking into him every single day. I would have no fear if I were him about Congress asking questions and looking into it. I think they are.
The definition of it is he's not been on the front end of this so far. He's not been transparent. I mean, there may be.
They are making routine announcements about the things they are finding, and they are inviting questions about the things they are finding every single day.
But by definition, he's not being transparent. They're not providing data for the things that they say they have found evidence of. They just aren't.
The White House has provided.
You can make announcements, and he also did admit that he actually.
So you just don't believe it. I mean, they are providing information. You just choose not to believe that it's true.
I don't think anyone should just believe that it's true. Do you think that people have taken kickbacks of tens of millions of dollars from USAID?
Here's what I think.
Do you believe that?
I think every year.
No, but don't accuse me of just like.
I'm just asking you. Do you believe that there is any level of fraud, waste, fraud, abuse in the government?
No, that's not what you're asking me. And I'm going to ask the question. Don't accuse me of just like.
And so, if you believe that, do you believe that it's possible that they are finding and producing information about it? Of course,
that wasn't my question. The question was, by definition, they're not being transparent. They can continue to be successful.
What do you want them to do?
Provide data. If they're provide data that they have found people. Everyone would want to know if someone has received kickbacks to the tune of tens of millions of dollars.
I don't disagree with you. I love the idea of data. I love the announcements. I love them putting out regular reports of what they're doing.
They have not.
And I love the idea of Congress also bringing them up to report to Congress on what they're finding, because ultimately Congress needs to be engaged in this as well. I have no problem with that, and I don't think they do either, and that's what I heard in his press conference yesterday.
Okay.
The hypocrisy of these leftoids talking about transparency. And I think, look, as far as the presidency goes, they're being very transparent. They're coming out every day and telling us their findings. You're getting more information every day. Carolyn Levitt's up there telling us what they're finding. Elon Musk is talking in the Oval Office. The leftoids like to say, oh, but Trump this, but Trump that. Now, I'm going to use that against them. Look at the Biden administration. The zero transparency that we had. Literally hiding stuff from the American people that Americans had rights to know. Unbelievable. Let's get to the next clip where they talk about the firings at the Education Department. Let's hit it.
Breaking news, mass firings have begun at federal agencies, according to employee and union sources. Probationary employees are being fired at the Department of Education and the Small Business Administration. Now, until now, federal employees across the government were just placed on administrative leave. Jamal is back with us at the table. These firings appear to affect people. The Department of Education has been in DOJ's sights. People in the Office of Special Education and Rehabilitation Services that supports kids with disabilities, and the Federal Student Aid Office. That's at least what we know right now. I also want to read part of what the letter said to these employees. Quote, the agency finds, based on your performance, that you have not demonstrated that your further employment at the agency would be in the public interest. So it's begun.
So most of the 19th century, the civil service was open for patronage, right? It was handled by big city bosses and, politicians of both parties. In 1883, President Chester Arthur made the merit-based system civil service. And that was to get rid of politics in our civil service, so we knew we could count on government employees to do the people's business, not the politicians' business. We are not just going back to some previous, thing in the 70s, 1970s, or the 1950s. We're going all the way back to the 1870s and how the President of the United States wants to govern. So whether he wants to be President McKinley and start annexing like new lands overseas, or he wants to go back to an earlier era where everybody's going to be beholden to the president and not beholden to the people. This is not, I think, what the American public signed up for. They wanted change, and the Democrats want change. All of us, I think, want to have a government that works for us, it's faster, it's more efficient, but we don't want a government that doesn't work for us and works for billionaires and the president of the United States.
Every 4 years, I mean, I'm just trying to put my head in the position of this country when Trump is not president, right? Every 4 years, presumptively now, the president's going to come in and the entire civil service of the government is going to change out, and all the things that you relied on the government to do, now you have no idea whether the government's going to do it or not because of the whims of the president. I think that is also something that we have to take seriously as a possibility here.
Well, the whims, as you call them, are embedded in the Constitution of the United States. The president's the head of the executive branch. He ought to be able to decide how to operate the executive branch and who works at the executive branch. And you say that the government shouldn't answer to the president should answer to the people. Well, how do the people?
They should be responsible.
How do the people choose how to govern themselves? By electing a president. And so, look, these are probationary employees. I don't know how many it is, but all I know is this: government only ever seems to get bigger and never really seems to get smaller. He promised to make it smaller, and now they're making it smaller. To me, the political upside here is quite obvious.
And I think this goes hand in hand with the buyouts that were offered that the judge then put a freeze on, right? And so if they can't...
just to be clear, that freeze has now been lifted by the judge because the
and
case
it's going to be appealed.
Going on.
So if it's, if they can't do it through the buyouts, then they're going to fire people. And who can they fire? They can fire the people who don't yet have union protection because they are probationary, as Scott just said.
Meaning they were more recently hired.
Yeah, which means I don't understand how they can be sending an email saying your performance has proven not to be up to par when they were just recently hired.
It seems like
it's very arbitrary.
It seems like a bit of they're trying to, it's kind of CYA, like you have to put that in there to justify firing someone, even though the firing is really more about Scott's point than it is actually about this person's performance, which we will probably end up seeing in court at some point.
I want to go back to Jamal's point and respectfully disagree. You said, I don't think this is what the American people signed up for, but I think it's exactly what we signed up for. I don't know if any president in history spent this much time on holding accountability and efficiency to his own government. So the Department of Education has a $70 billion budget annually, yet we haven't seen any progress in the educational system over the last 4 years. We're ranked 13 in the world. We're like 24th in science, 18th in math. We're really not doing well on a global stage in terms of our education system performance. So I think evaluating, where is the $70 billion going? Where are we failing? And how do we make this better? I don't know if blind firings for probational employees is the right thing to do, but I think definitely investigating through DOJ why we are failing so badly in the DOE is absolutely the right move to do.
I'm telling you, in every government office I've ever seen, you can walk through the door, you can ask anybody, who around here is not doing their job? They'll tell you. People will tell you who's not doing their job. You can get rid of those people. I don't know if anybody would complain, but it's the mass firings that says something else is afoot. It's not just what they're calling it.
I agree.
I think
there is something else afoot.
Yeah, I think that going off of what you were saying, Emily, with the budget, I think more than half of the budget goes to grants and loans for low-income students, for them to be able to attend college, things like that. And so, but I do agree with your point that we need to be doing more on education. And so there needs to be some sort of reform. And I think that this has been something that conservatives have long wanted, is shrinking the Department of Education. So I support all of that in that regard. But where I have the issue is these firings, and what is the reasoning for them? Are these people being laid off because maybe they're anti-Trump and posted things on social media? Like, what is these people deserve a little bit more of an explanation then.
No, there's no mystery.
Just a vague email.
There's no mystery, and let me offer them an explanation. This administration would like to make the federal government smaller. We would like to spend less on payroll. You just got here, therefore you won't be working here anymore. It's pretty simple, and they shouldn't take it personally. But these guys got elected to shrink the government, and that's what they intend to do.
Scott, there has been like cold emails going to government workers even before Trump took office in those 2 months between the transition, wanting people to snitch on each other, wanting colleagues to snitch on each other. Who supported Biden? Who did this? Who did that? There's websites targeting people who are government, not political appointees, civil servants. And I would tell you that I'm not sure everybody knew what they were signing up for. I remember reading the case of a VA worker who was moving to Washington because they just gotten a new employment, right? And now now it's frozen. And guess what? They voted for Trump. but they've sold their house, they've sold their car, they are ready to move to Washington, D.C. to be a VA worker, and now they're out of jobs. And so that's going to happen to Republicans, Democrats, and everybody in between.
Yeah, these firing of these people, every time there's a change of office, people lose their jobs, new people get jobs. That's how it is in Washington. But when we talk about the education department, we're talking about the U.S. right now, out of the top 40 countries in education, I think we're ranked the last one, or 39 or something of the sorts. The education department is not really helping at all. There's many things that could be done to improve education in America. Right now, the reading skills of a 13-year-old are at an all-time low. Like, how is this possible with all the tools that we have at our disposals? Also, the fact that we should have more school choice. This idea that because you live in maybe more of a downtrodden neighborhood or downtrodden area, that you have to send your kids there when we've had cars forever. If you have a little bit of money, you should be able to send your kid a little bit further out to go to a better school. The education department is just there to help teachers. It's not there to help the students. It's like teachers union. We need to crack down on those too. Teachers union are there to help the teachers get smaller classrooms, shorter hours of work, and more pay. And I'm not saying that teachers don't deserve more pay, but they are not there when it comes to teachers union to benefit the students. They're there to benefit the teachers. Let's get to the next clip.
This is a power play, plain and simple. The president wants people to obey. He wants people to use the words he chooses. He wants people to fall in line. And if they don't, they lose their access. They're not allowed to be in the company of the president. Notably, in the last 2 days, when the AP reporters have been blocked, in one case, I'm told physically blocked from entering the Oval Office, the photographer was still allowed in, the AP photographer, right? Because the president still wants his photo taken.
Pictures, just
he wants
not
the
the
pictures,
words.
but not the words. This is a First Amendment violation, and I expect in the next few days the AP will file suit, and they have a very strong case in court. This is yet another example where the courts will be the recourse for presidential action.
Brian, what are the other media outlets doing?
Right now,
Yeah.
White
they're
House
still showing up.
Correspondents
They're still asking
Association's put out a
questions. But that's
statement.
right. The Correspondents Association has condemned this and called it unacceptable. I think you're suggesting maybe reporters should, what, skip the briefing?
Should
then?
band together because, I
Skip
mean,
the,
listen,
Q&As?
if the bully manages to bully one, he's not going to stop at one.
I don't think this is as emotional as you're making it out to be. You know, take away the hysteria for a moment. First off, Trump doesn't need
Who's
AP
being
to
hysterical?
Take, both of you. Trump doesn't need, first of all, AP
You
to
obviously
take his
don't know what a
photographs.
hysterical Anna Navarro is
I
like.
just believe it comes down to compliance.
That's true,
Trump put
actually.
out an executive order. There was an executive order. He changed the name legally to Gulf of America. They're United States-based. I know they're international as well, but right now they're covering U.S. politics. So if he makes an executive order, they should respect that. And if they don't, being there is not a right, it's a privilege. It's
said
not
there
just
are-
I'm going to add in here, though, this has been called the Gulf of Mexico for 400 years,
Right.
and every other nation calls it the Gulf of Mexico. So just
they're-
because Trump
they're
claims that
operating
we
out of
need
the
to...
United States.
Okay, but doesn't this feel like a really weird, like, wokeism thing on the right? Like, it feels like the right's version of, like, Latinx or, like, birthing person. It just
Well,
feels like a
we
really
had to
weird
comply
hill
with
to
that.
die on.
Nobody,
that we're gonna,
by the way, just to be
we're
clear,
gonna force
nobody had
outlets
to
cover it.
comply with any of that.
Yeah, if
I
the
don't think I've
Biden,
ever
if
said
the
the words
Biden
birthing
administration did that,
And if they
Till now.
did,
People
I
would be
think
up in arms.
you know, heads would be exploding at this table.
Maybe
if
they should,
someone said to
they
you,
should
you've got to
call it
refer to people as
they should
birthing
adopt
people.
the Prince method. Just have a little symbol called the Gulf, formerly known as the Gulf of Mexico, which should now be
Seriously,
called
they should
whatever
do
the
that.
hell.
They should say
there's a much
formerly
broader-
Gulf
The
of
Gulf
Mexico.
of whatever the hell he wants.
But there's a much broader
petty.
danger.
I just-
Today, it's the Gulf of Mexico or the
Right.
Gulf of America. Tomorrow, what is it? The president says there's only two genders in this world. We all know transgender people. What happens when the AP reports on transgender Americans?
Why are they bringing this back to transgenderism? This is not the same at all. There are only two sexes. You are male or you're female. Transgender people exist, but at the end of the day, they are still male or female. That is why it was different. Look, names are arbitrary. If you're a grown-ass man named Steve and you want me to call you Susie and you've legally changed your name, fair play. I'm not calling you she because pronouns are a structure of grammar, okay? I'm conveying a lie if I am calling you she and you are a he, but your name, I could care less. Names can change of stuff. The Gulf of Mexico, the Gulf of America. Names of buildings change all the time. Names of areas change all the time. Humans change their names. Names are arbitrary. Sex is not. You are a man or you are a woman. This is biology, this is fact, this is science. It is not the same. Let's get back at it.
What happens when CNN or ABC or the New York Times?
Okay,
Are those the next
what
outlets
if
to
I
be
believe
punished?
that there's 2 genders and then Biden tells me that there's 73? I don't comply with that.
Yeah, but
The Biden
But again,
administration
it's-
isn't barring Fox News from covering press conferences.
Right, he's not going to ban you from
And Trump
coming to
hasn't
the
done
White
that
House
yet.
because
This
you
is
have a
what I
different
mean about
belief.
the
But
But
why
it's
For the last 2 days, though, the AP has been blocked from attending events that it's
People will not
attended for
comply with the
decades.
executive
You
order.
know, I really would,
you want the
rather you
president to do that?
not refer to me
To ban AP?
as hysterical for expressing an opinion. I think that's incredibly disrespectful. I don't do it to you.
Why do you think the AP won't just call it the Gulf of America? I mean,
That's
the
petty to
president
me.
Well, does
let me
rename
just-
things. We rename what's the mountain, Denali, Mount McKinley. I mean,
Let me
things get
read
renamed from time to
let me
time.
read their explanation for why they are not doing it. Essentially, they are saying that Trump's order only carries authority within the United States. Mexico, as well as other countries and international bodies, do not have to recognize that name change. The Gulf of Mexico has carried that name for 400 years. As was said at the table, and the Associated Press is going to refer to it by its original name, while acknowledging that Trump has a new name that he would like to call it. They are an international organization. No one except Trump with a pen has said that it's the Gulf of America. It's a body of water that also has borders with another country, and it's been named that for 400 years.
I know, but we have a lawful process in this country for changing the name of it. The president went through it with the Secretary of the Interior, by the way. I mean, it
And
feels
it's also
a little
different. Can I just answer your Denali question? The Denali thing is actually different because that's a place that's in the United States proper. It exists in
But we changed
in
the name
this
of it. The
country.
point is we changed the name
we
of it.
have the ability
It
to
does
change
happen.
the name. It's
And
Mount
so-
McKinley. It's Mount McKinley.
But we also have the ability to change this body of water. I think, look, this smacks to me of a news organization looking for a way to pick a fight with Donald Trump over something that they don't need to pick a fight over.
Exactly.
A. B.
It's petty.
B. He is the president, and there is a
wait.
lawful process
But
that he
Scott,
did follow to do it.
The news
and so
organization
why
did
won't
not
they just
pick a
respect
fight with
that?
Donald Trump over this. Donald Trump picked a fight with
No,
the news
no,
organization.
they're not calling
over
it by the name.
No,
That's the
the
fight.
news organization can do whatever they want. If they want to call it the Gulf of South America, they can call it
But
that.
why would I
Donald
respect
Trump
a news
doesn't-
organization that
Yeah,
doesn't deal in reality?
but
You don't
Actually,
have
false
to.
But Scott,
information if to not
Scott,
call it what
they
it is.
can call it whatever they want because there's free speech in this country. Wouldn't you
Sure.
agree?
Yes, but that, in my opinion, if you're not willing to call something by the proper name based on the laws of the United States, that calls into question your judgment. And are you a news organization,
by the way,
or are you
there
just?
are no laws in play here. It's an executive order,
but-
and the body of water is not named by the United States. It's named
Sure it
by
is.
global organizations that name global landmarks.
Would it
That's
be-
not.
I
mean,
it's not. There's a
So
law.
you don't respect Donald Trump's executive order or the Secretary of the Interior's process on this either. then?
Donald Trump had an executive order, but the Associated Press is not bound by it.
Scott,
That's
what
the
if
bottom line.
the
Well,
Biden
that's their
administration
choice.
did
I like
this,
the-
though, similarly? What if the Biden administration was barring, say, a Fox News because they weren't going along with an executive order where Biden said you must refer to every single transgender person as they,
Listen,
them, or whatever
I
it
think
was?
I think if you
would
want to engage
would,
in a-
would you be supportive of that then?
Yeah,
I think
no,
that
no.
it gets really dangerous when we start forcing terminology on people. I didn't like it when the left did it with things like Latinx, birthing person, you name
these
it.
things are
But-
not in any way,
but
shape, or form
no,
related.
they're
B,
remotely
the Biden
similar.
administration treated the press as poorly as any president has ever treated them, gave them less access, answered no questions, no transparency at any given time. Donald Trump's answered more questions in 3 weeks than Joe Biden answered in 4 years. Elon Musk answered
That's not
more
true,
than
and also a lot of the answers
Come
are
on, Brian.
true in that.
This
it's also-
administration
hang
is
on.
giving the most
It is
access to the press
also-
they could possibly
just
want.
to be clear, it's also changing the subject, and we're not changing the
Yeah.
subject.
But you're asking about transparency.
No,
Can the news be covered?
Actually,
And
we're
yes,
talking
it's being
about
covered.
the First Amendment, freedom of speech.
Is he being
The
covered?
AP will win in
That's what we're
court.
talking
Look, the
about.
AP is going to win in court. If they go to court, the AP will win, just as CNN won in 2018 when a press credential was revoked. We're going to see the courts speak out on behalf of the First Amendment here.
I'm with Scott here that if he changes the name to the Gulf of America, whether they like it or not, them not calling it that, they are based out of the U.S. I get that they're an international organization. It's simply they're not reporting on the truth. So now if you're the president, you can
The truth-
argue they're not
But
reporting
Emily,
the truth,
wouldn't
so
you
why are they
agree that the
qualified to be
truth
here?
is also that the rest of the world calls it the Gulf
So
of Mexico?
technically, every other country
you
could
ag-
change the name of
wouldn't
it
you
too in their own country. Then the journalists should comply with whatever their
Okay,
country
but
wants
Emily,
to call
wouldn't
it.
you agree that the truth is also that every other country in the world calls it the Gulf of Mexico?
That's fine, but Donald Trump put an executive order to
which
change
truth
it.
do you care about?
I care about the American truth.
Okay.
the
So let's
American
just be
truth
clear
is that
about it.
Trump
You
changed
only
the name.
care about
So
the
US
version of
journalists-
truth that Donald Trump
I believe
says is
This feels like a really
US
weird hill to die
journalist-
on and something to get quite hysterical over. It feels like it's actually ridiculous.
It is weird
that
how
this
the
is
back-
a
It's
very
the opposite of a
weird
hill.
thing.
Why is he
Brian,
dying on
we
this
should
hill?
just
Hang on a
call it
second,
Gulf of
Brian. I
Mexico.
do want
agree.
to.
We have bigger
guys,
things to
I
focus
I do
on.
want to
Above
talk
and
about
beyond.
one very important thing.
Yeah.
Speaking of treatment of the media, the FCC is going after media companies.
Yes.
They're going after NPR and PBS. They're going after NBC, Universal, and Comcast over their corporate practices around DEI. What authority do they have to
The
do
FCC has never done this under Republicans or Democrats before. The current FCC chair appointed by Trump wants to be different, wants to do things differently. That's what he's doing. But this all smacks of an attempt to pressure every major media company in the U.S. except for Fox News. In terms of
Which, by
license
the way,
holders,
until
all the others are under pressure
maybe
right
2
now.
or 3 weeks ago, also had DEI practices as part of their
Yes, it did.
corporate governance.
Yes, it did. We
Because
talked
they're
about-
a private corporation.
And it can do what it wants.
Well, to be clear here, PBS, NPR, they get tons of money from American taxpayers. That's where it's very different. We've been given NPR $535 million a year over the last decade. You can't tell me that today in 2025 that we need NPR, especially a channel, a media outlet that called the Biden laptop disinformation, who called anybody who said that the COVID virus was man-made a conspiracy theorist. They called it misinformation. In 2025, we don't need to be funding these organizations. There's enough media out in the world. Look at YouTube if you want your kids to watch children's content. There's tons of free stuff available to you. We don't need to be funding these left-wing corporations that have these Marxist ideologies. Not today. Not happening. Defund NPR 100%. There was a time when I was a kid. I was born in the late 80s. There's a time that government used to fund a TV program and news programming, right? I had Mr. Rogers growing up because there was no other venues, there was no other outlet. You needed high quality shows in order to teach the kids how to read, how to write, but they were good. They weren't ideological. They were just teaching the basics, good morals, good ethics, how to treat people, how to count, how to read. This episode is brought to you by the letter A, but now it's all these ideologues in NPR teaching Marxist ideologies. Yeah, shut it down. Hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, smash that thumbs up button for your boy. Consider subscribing to the channel. Help it grow. Catch you in the next one. Peace out, everybody.